you know how it goes. You see the game footage at a press conference, on a website, in a magazine, and then, after months and months of waiting and being totally hyped for it, nothing. The game never comes out. And, you're kind of sitting there thinking, yo dude, where's my video game? Hello, I'm Shadow Raccoon.
And I'm Theodore Rabbit.
And today we're going to take a look at some cancelled furry video games that sadly none of us will likely ever get to play. In 2002, developers IdleFX, who are best known for their notorious mega flop Drake of the 99 Dragons, started work on action stealth game Fu, with plans to release it on the PC.
Set in ancient China, Fu featured 3D graphics where you would play as one of 5 different characters: a dragon, a tiger, an ape, a rat, or a panda. As you would expect, each of these characters had their own skill set and characteristics, enhancing your gameplay experience.
The aim of the game was for you to enter the ancient palaces and temples during the middle of the night and, under the cover of darkness, loot them for all their wonderful shinies. Before the start of each raid or level, you would need to select from a range of different traps in order to prevent your rivals from stealing all the loot for themselves. And to make the challenge just that little bit harder, each trap would have added some extra weight to your character too, just kind of slowing you down and making it even harder for you to steal loot quickly from the temple. It was planned that each level would also be procedurally generated, so, you'd have a random encounter every time you loaded the game up, which means, you've got this long-lasting, differing game experience.
However, IdleFX unfortunately ceased to exist sometime around 2004, as Fu never really being fully completed and the game forever being cancelled. First shown at Japanese arcade machine trade show JAMA 1993, Looney Tunes Buy Your Hair was set to be a side-scrolling racing game featuring all your favorite Looney Tune characters, such as Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and Porky Pig.
Very little information about this machine and game actually exist, beyond some very low-resolution images and a small gaming magazine article about it from the time. It is believed, though, that the game was to be developed for the Sega System 32 hardware, which was at the time used for arcade games such as the Sonic the Hedgehog arcade game and Combat.
The game itself was understood to be a free-player racing game, with an additional CPU character who would always play as Taz, the Tasmanian Devil. Controls were said to be quite simple, with the player frantically pushing the run button to make the characters speed up throughout the race. In order to add challenge to this simple race structure though, other popular Looney Tune characters such as Yosemite Sam, Wile E. Coyote, and Elmer Fudd would all appear in the background to attempt to interfere with the game.
Sadly though, outside of the JAMA 1993 trade show, no instances of this arcade machine have ever been recorded, with the game unlikely to have ever been released to the public, and sadly that means no ROM too, which means, you're probably never going to be able to find this, and unfortunately this is just yet another furry video game that you're never going to have the chance to play.
Planning to release in 2011 on the Xbox 360 and PS3, Wildlife Forest Survival was planned to be a unique arena-based battle-style game from EA. Unlike many of the other games on this list, this game actually had a teaser trailer created for it, which means that, apart from a bit limited, we can actually get a real feel for what this game may have actually been like.
The aim of the game, as you might have expected from the title, was to survive in one of the 8 different arenas in the game by taking advantage of the different skills and characteristics of the animal characters you could play as. The choice, though, of these characters seems to be quite limited, with you only having 4 animals to choose from: a hawk, a rabbit, a fox, and a gator.
A Destructoid article written about a preview of this game sheds a little bit more light on what the experience may have been like to have played it. The game would have allowed you to face up to 11 additional players in your fight to survival, with a game limited to 4 of each species.
The foxes would have been, apparently, according to the article at least, been able to hunt out the rabbits and the hawks, with the hawks then being able to hunt down the foxes and the rabbits from the sky. To balance that out, apparently the rabbits were a bit harder to catch because of their size. And then the rabbits, well, apparently, they just needed to eat carrots to survive, which sounds familiar to me. The gators, though, apparently were the most unbalanced, with them apparently being very slow to move and awkward. It is noted also, from the same article, that the background and the setting felt very, very cute, which was apparently an absolute massive contrast to the game's dark overtones, and, you can see that from the demo footage we have of it. Apparently it was like nothing else on the market at the time, but overall the impression was a very positive one, and the person who wrote the article was very curious to see a finished product for this. However, though, unfortunately, for no noted reason, EA shelved the project for good, making Wildlife Forest Survival just another furry video game that we'll never see. Originally planned as a launch title for the Nintendo 3DS, KO King of Pirates was planned to be an anthropomorphic pirate action-adventure game. Developed by a studio started by former Capcom artist and producer Keiji Inafune, whose resume includes games such as Street Fighter, Mega Man, and Mighty No. 9, this game was set to be the start of a huge franchise, including associated anime, manga, and even toys. Game publisher Marvelous quickly acquired rights to the game, alongside providing very generous funding for its production.
KO King of Pirates was set to be a three-part series. Its story was set to recount the famous romance of the Three Kingdoms tale, similar to the story told in games such as Destiny Warriors. However, changing the scenario to involve pirates, ships, sea monsters, and, as you'd expect, anthropomorphic creatures.
The lead character was set to be a rather cute penguin named Sangokushi, and would see them encounter other animals such as lions, snakes, parrots, and even dragons. Despite a launch trailer existing for this game and a few images alongside it, not much was ever seen of any actual gameplay for the game, so it can be difficult to judge this and determine just how it may have looked on the 3DS's hardware.
The game was, as often games are, heavily delayed during its production, with its release date moved back to 2012, then 2014, before finally being cancelled at the start of 2015. In the course of its development, it was revealed that the game lost the publishers around 461 million yen, or roughly $3.8 million.
Arguably, had this been pulled off well, it may have been a rather cute anthro game for the 3DS and a fun series. However, due to various development nightmares and probably thinking just a little bit too ambitiously, this is just another furry video game that we'll never get to play. Starting its life as Chaos for the PS1 before a platform and a name change, Canaan was planned to be a first and third person shooter game for the PC around the end of 1999. Set to be published by Ubisoft and developed by Argonaut Games, notable for their work on Star Fox and the Croc games, this game was planned to be an interesting twist on the classic shooter genre at the time, featuring an open-world environment and anthropomorphic enemies. Can apparently think of it like a mix of GoldenEye and Quake.
Thankfully, unlike many cancelled and forgotten games, this one does seem to have some evidence of it still out there. Most notably in the 1998 issue of Gamer magazine, Edge. In this article, we learned that the game would have featured alien-themed dog and wolf enemies, with players' goal being to stop these enemies from invading and capturing their own planet.
Through the game's progression, new plot elements would have been introduced, including new characters, more powerful and enhanced weapons, and a big plot twist. The game itself was also set to use revolutionary technologies at the time for the graphics, with detailed buildings and apparently enhanced draw distances. Whilst it does appear that the Edge magazine people certainly seem to have had access to a playable demo of the game, and there's this very low quality video from an E3 show, it certainly does appear that nothing public for this game was ever actually released.
Former staff of the project have been quoted in saying that they have really enjoyed the project that they were working on and that it was quite close to completion at the time of its demise. They also seem to be optimistic that due to how close the game was to completion and with the demo's existence, that maybe eventually, one day, something playable could find its way onto the internet.
Interestingly, there is a page of the website in French on archive.org which does share a little more information about the game, along with listing the minimum requirements you needed to run it on your PC, which both reminds us how close the game must have been to finishing, and also a reminder of what PC specs were like in 1999. Tragically, no reason has ever been given for the game's cancellation, and despite it being in a near-complete state, Canaan looks, for now at least, set to be another furry game that you'll never get the chance to play. So there we go, those were some furry video games that, whether through creative differences, cost-cutting, or many other reasons, sadly never quite saw the light of day. What games from this list would you most like to see? Let us know in the comments below. Additionally, I would like to give a quick big thanks to website and archive project Unseen64 for helping provide me with the information, images and footage used in this video. Without their amazing archive, I just wouldn't have been able to do this video and find some of these forgotten gems. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button, share with a friend, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, or consider supporting us on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. I'm Shadow Raccoon.
And I'm Theodore Rabbit.
And we'll see you next time. Bye everyone!
Bye!